Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So we have a slight problem in the uploading of videos that we need to fix. So this is the issue where the order of these is undetermined. So for example, if I try to add a video here, let's see here, let me add one of these Paw Patrol videos again because they are very distinct. So if I hit save, it saves quite all right, but we have this data that we are showing here, but I'm going to ignore that for now because it shows us what's going on inside. But let me just refresh the page, and then you will see that the Paw Patrol video, instead of being on this, it actually moved to here for some reason. Doesn't matter where I put it, it just goes to this one. So let's try and observe what the real problem is. So to fix the issue, one thing I've noticed is the way things are set up. Let me go to the courses view. Just a little reminder because it helps to know the context here. So if I find, let me look for video file. So there it is in the JavaScript. This is the part that creates that video section. So every time I click on add new lecture, this is the part that works. So if I say add lecture, that's the part that will be evoked. So now the thing is, on the video input file, here where we have this input of type file, this one does not go with these guys over here, because this one is received in the files array and not the post array like the rest. So what we're going to do is we need to know the position of each one of these elements. Now, if I open or go back here, you will notice that you see here on this section, this is section 2, right? And then there's section 1 over here. So there's section 1 with 2 videos. And then there's section 2. Now, quite alright on section 1, if I look at these inputs, let me inspect, you will see that the description lecture 0, curriculum 0. This is correct because this is the first curriculum, that's number 0, and this is the first lecture, lecture 0. Okay, so that's fine. But let's move to the next lecture here. And I'm going to inspect this as well. So inspect, and you see it rightly says description lecture 1 still in curriculum 0. However, if I go to the section 2 here and inspect, now observe, this one is curriculum 1, which is true because the first one is 0. But now look at the description lecture, it's 2. So the number does not reset on each section, so it goes to 2, and then the next one is 3, and so on. So I want each item to be numbered like this instead. So let's say this is section 1, right? This is item 0 in the lecture section, which is it is right now, and this is item 1. But then when I go to another section, this one should be 0 again, but in this case it's actually 2 because the number never resets, which makes it difficult to know on what position in section 2 this item is at, because we get a number 2, which really depends on how many other items are in the previous sections here, which gets a little confusing. So what would be good is whenever the section is reset like this, we're in a different section, we go back to the number 0 and we start counting from there. That way it's easy to know what level we are at here. All right. Okay, so now we need that fixed. So here what I want is on section 2, these guys should be lecture 0 again. So description lecture 0 in curriculum 1. So but I don't want to change any of this content here because this works just fine. You see, these text-based stuff works okay. So I don't want to disturb that. The only thing I want to deal with is the video version, because this one goes to a files array that's different from the rest of this. So no editing of these. We just want to edit the browse, this files thingy here. So which is the one I want to edit here. Now that number for the lecture is right here on the inputs count, because it's next to the curriculum index, and the number is determined by this variable right here. So it's lecture inputs count. So what I want is to reset the input count every time the lecture number changes. So at this point, the lecture number is determined by the curriculum number changes when it changes. So this is the curriculum ID. So this changes every time through the loop. And then there's inputs count here, which also changes. I want to reset this to 0 every time we go to a new curriculum, or to a new section in this case. So I can do that by going down here. You see, this is where we increment the inputs count. So that's fine. What I want to do is, just for us to see what's going on here, I'm going to duplicate this and do a console.log like that. And let me remove the ++ at the end. I can't find my cursor here. Okay, there we go. So if I go back over here and inspect the element, I'm going to go to the console, delete everything that's here, and refresh the page. Now, if you observe, after all this stuff happens, we add inputs, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that is fine. There are indeed 5 inputs there, which is true. Now, what I want to do is check, for example, let's see here. Let's go one up here. So I want to create one that monitors the previous curriculum ID. So I'm going to call this one prev curriculum ID and set it to 0. So lecture.curriculum ID, or previous curriculum ID there. Okay, so let's leave that as it is. And then at the very end here, I want to always set the, let's see, lecture.previous curriculum ID should be equal to the current curriculum ID, which is lecture.curriculum ID, like that. Okay. Okay, now before we actually set this one, we have to check if they actually match. So I'm going to grab these two and put that in an if statement and do this. Let me remove that semicolon and say whenever they are not equal to each other, at this point, instead of incrementing the lecture count, we are supposed to reset it to 0. So I'm going to do equal to 0 at this point, like so. Okay, so now I want to monitor how lecture inputs count will go at this point, right? So what's happening is, let's say the curriculum ID currently is 0, which it's going to be at the beginning, right? So it's 0, and also so curriculum ID is 0 and previous is 0 because they both start at 0. Now, as we are looping, it won't go through here because they are equal. So this will never be true because they are both zeros. Now, let's say the lecture curriculum ID changes. Now they are no longer equal. So in this loop, this will actually reset the inputs count to 0. Okay, so, and then once it sets that, still at the end, they're going to be reset to equal. That way we only reset the number at the moment when the lecture count changes. So let's try and see how this works. If I refresh now, let's look at the numbers, shall we? Down here. Where are these numbers? Here they are. So you see it starts with 1, 2, and then 0, 1, 2. So that is great. I'm liking this. So it's resetting. The only problem is I think it's resetting at the wrong time, because let's look at the inputs. So on this one, if I go into this one and inspect, it should be, oh, wait a minute. Let me close. Which one is this? Yeah, okay, so let's go to the top. This one is input 0. Where is this? Yes, so 0's there on both. That's great. This one has 1 0. That's great. But what about the first item in the next section? What does it say? It still says 2 1 here, which is incorrect. But let's go to the next one and see. If we inspect, this one is correctly 0 curriculum 1. So it's resetting a little too late. So what I want to do is move this guy above this HTML that we are creating. So I want to change the value of this guy before we actually do anything. So before we create the input fields over there. Alrighty then. So back. We don't need this console.log anymore because we've seen it actually works, just changes at a very at the wrong time. So back to here, let's refresh, and let me try the first item in section 2. It should have a 0. So curriculum should say, okay, so the lecture is 0, curriculum is 1. That is correct. Okay, so what this enables me to do is to know that in this particular lecture, this is the first item because it's got a 0 there. And then if we go to the next one, this should have a 1, which is correct. And this would have a 2, right? And that's correct. Now, if you notice, the first one in this item has a 0, right? Now, because it resets at every... so this one has a 0, but the curriculum is 1, which makes it different from the very first one here, which has both zeros. If I inspect, it's both curriculum 0 and 0 lecture. So things are working as planned. Now, it means these guys are all tagged. This one now has a 0 on it, this one has a 1, and this one has a 2. Just like on the previous section, this one has a 0, the first one, and this one has a 1. Then we go to the next lecture there. Okay, so hopefully this will help us at least use something to monitor the situation. So now what I want to do is use those numbers on the other side. So if I go to the admin section now, I want to find where it says curriculum so I can just do a search. Alright, so where is curriculum? I want the part where we save, that's where we save, and where it's curriculum, that's that there. And let's go to the part where we loop through the files section, which is right there. Okay, so this is where the trouble begins, right? So I think this is okay over here. This is fine. The problem is over here. Now, instead of just adding items to the end here, I want to add very specific keys so that I don't replace what I don't need to replace. So there's a key here. This thing we're looking at here is the thing we created on the courses view side. The number we were changing is this one. So if we can just grab this number from the key, this one here, because this is the name of the file input, so and the name is like this, and we changed the number here to suit the current location of the item, then things will work out because this key represents the curriculum number. So curriculum 0, item 0 can be added there, or curriculum 1, item 0. So this represents the curriculum and this represents the lecture number. So we just need to grab this number and shove it in there, and that will determine which item we are talking about. So what I'm going to do is grab this pattern right here. Actually, I just need to create a key here. So I've already used key, I've already used new key. I'm just going to create one called subkey. I don't know, I think I've used subkey before, so I don't want to be confused here. Let me just say this key or something, just so I know this is new. So let's generate this key here. I'm going to say this key is equal to, now I'm going to do a string replace. So I'm going to do str replace. It's a very good function to use. So string replace, you put a string that you want to search for. So in this case, I just want to search this part right here from the new key. So let me just put that there. And then I want to replace it with nothing. So empty string. And then what's the subject? The subject is this key right here. That's where we are searching. And that's it. Now the thing is, if I've replaced this with an empty string, which means I'm remaining with the rest of the key number. But the number I want is just this one over here, whatever that number is. So which means I don't need this curriculum and key at the end there, whatever is in that variable at that time. Now the beauty of string replace is you can actually put arrays here. It's very good. If you put an array here, it will find the first item in the array, and if you put another array on the replace, it will replace with the next item here. But we're just going to put an array on the search, and then because there's only one string here on the replace, it will replace every item in the array with an empty string. So it will search each item in the array in this string, find it and replace it with an empty. So in order to have multiple items here, we just put square brackets to make it an array, and then comma, and then I can paste that now. So what it does here is going to search for this in the same thing, and then search for that in the same thing, and replace both with an empty string. But key here is a variable. So what we want to do is do this and put a dot to concatenate. Let's remove those two guys like so. All right. So this key, that key there. I think this solves the problem because now we have very specific keys on which location we are dealing with. Okay. So moment of truth, let's give it a test to see what's going on. And hopefully that wasn't too confusing on what's going on anyway. All right, so let's look at, I want to see what I want to replace. It was impossible to replace the last item. Let me try and replace the first item. Actually, that's easy to replace. Let me replace this with another Paw Patrol video. So I'm going to click there. And very few videos I have here. I think this one is a different Paw Patrol video. And also, I don't want any echoes here that are not important. So let me scroll down. Yeah, let me remove this show lecture data file so we don't have to see that anymore. Instead, it should just refresh. All right, so I've added one Paw Patrol here on the last video. So I just want to see if this black thing will be replaced or it will stay as it is. So hit save. Course saved successfully, but let's monitor and see if it indeed saved properly. And as you can see, it indeed did. Normally it would have replaced this one, but the files look exactly the same. So let me put a different file over here just to be sure that, let me add this one. I thought this one is the one I had added, but apparently not. Okay, so I want to replace the last one. This one will remain as it is. So let's save again. There we go. So let me go down here, and there, as you can see, this one has been replaced. It's very different from this one. Let's try and add a new lecture here, and some lecture description. Let's add a new file as well. So many items in that lecture. Let me try this one. It's a different video. As long as we see something different on the very end, then we know things are good. So let's go down here. And it did not work, apparently. Okay. So maybe because that was a new entry. So it seems we still have problems. Okay, let me try and add it again. Maybe it was the video itself, because we need to be able to fix that as well. Oh, this is WebM. Let me try this again. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's get something done. Okay, this time it seems to have worked. So I think maybe when it's a new file, there's a slight problem. So we might need to fix one more thing before we are done. But at least now it's working. Let's actually try and add a different section here. So another section like that. Section description. Let me just type my new section in here. Oops. Like so. Let's add a lecture over here and my new lecture. New lecture description. And then let's add a file. So let's see which part of it will not work and what will work. So this is an MP4 file. Great. Click that to go to the top and hit save. Let's see what's saved and what isn't. So undefined array key. Oh boy, this is becoming a nightmare. So for 419 is an error. Let's get it on. Where is that? 419 is over here. So save to lectures table. My UUID is equal to array UID. So maybe there isn't a UID here. What should be the thing to do? Okay. Where does UID go? Let's find this. Okay, so UID there. Array UID. My UID. Why is this cyclic? Because we start with that and then we're going backward again for some reason. Okay, let me see anywhere where this begins from. Oh, it starts from there. Okay, okay. UID. So here it creates a new ID. Array UUID. Alright, so array is created here. Okay. Okay, since this is how we create a UUID anyway, let me just grab this item here. If the UUID does not exist, let's just do this and put that as a spare. Okay, so we have to redo what we just did. Let me refresh the table. Let's add a new lecture. All right, let's give it a shot again. Okay, so it seems to have saved successfully. And there it is. Okay, so things are working as intended. Very, very good. Let's add one more lecture and see. New lecture. Yes, let's add a video. Any other video to go with this one? Let's go. And let's see it save. So we're adding a second video in the last section. Okay, there we go. So what's happening? And there it is. Look at that. So things are working as intended. Hopefully I haven't messed something up. And yeah, so the section is good. Finally, we have something that's working as intended. Yeah. So loading of videos, saving of videos is all done. Let's see here, course landing page. We have all this information. That's great. Promotions, course messages. Okay, good. Very nice. At least now we are able to create these lists here. All we need to do now is display the courses nicely when somebody clicks on a course to take it, because now we have all this good stuff going on here, and that's great. All right, so let's begin that in the next video.